Hello ladies and gents, welcome to the channel. Disney is continuing its long stride towards irrelevancy. I mean, it'll always be relevant in the regard that it's a powerhouse, but how truly relevant can it be when it's kowtowing to activists and lobbyists? Not particularly relevant, let's be honest, because they make up a very small subsection of the community. But they're striving onwards nonetheless, and I thought we'd dive into it because this is interesting industry news, and it does reflect, I guess you could say, where industry is going. We thought that it was, achieving some we thought it had peaked. Boy, were we wrong. So Disney CEO Bob Chapek claims the company is a force for inclusion but doesn't want it to become political football. So this is the ultimate fence sitting from Bob Chapek, yet they still kowtow to the lobby. So Disney CEO Bob Chapek sent out a company-wide memo following a meeting he had with Disney. Right, just as an FYI, Disney LGBTQ plus leaders. What is that? So he had a meeting with Disney LGBTQ plus leaders. Is that just people at Disney that are LGBTQ plus? I don't understand that, but okay. Now that was following criticism the company had received from activists and allegedly employees over a pending Florida legislation that prohibits schools from teaching about gender identity through the 3rd grade. Now, as previously reported, Disney faced criticism from activists over the fact that they had not publicly condemned Florida bill. And this is just the Florida bill for parental rights in education. And this is the crux of the matter, isn't it? Like, you've got a film company, just a company making movies and selling theme park rides, yet they have to wade in on politics? I mean, come on. It's just such nonsense. Just shut your mouth, make some films, and that's it. That's all you need to do. But the lobbyists love getting in there. They always do. Now, according to the Florida Senate's website, this is the bill specifically that they're supposed to condemn anyway. It requires district school boards to adopt procedures that comport with certain provisions of law for notifying students' parents of specified information. Requires such procedures to reinforce fundamental right of parents to make decisions regarding upbringing and control of their children. And outside of extenuating circumstances in the UK, it is the parents' right to make decisions over their children. Unless care orders are brought in, then the state comes into play. Right? That's the UK. I don't understand why it should be anywhere. It shouldn't be any different anywhere else. Parents ultimately know what. Oh, again, outside of extenuating circumstances, parents do know what is right for their child. A sweeping commentary from the government or state or federal departments is not what is right for children in any way, shape or form. But remember, ladies and gents, Disney needed to condemn this. God. And that prohibits school districts from adopting procedures or student support forms that prohibit school district personnel from notifying parents about specified information, or that encourage students to withhold from parents such information. I remember when I was back in school, that would be the first thing they'd do, is call your parents. Be like, yo. Mainly because teachers didn't want anything to do with it. They were like, whoa, I'm not wading in this, And anything that happened at school, we're going to call your parents. When has it become the school's right and also responsibility? Like, when? Most of all, again, outside of extenuating circumstances, it was always, let's get the parents in. Now, the bill also prohibits school district personnel from discouraging or prohibiting parental notification and involvement in critical decisions. Basically saying you cannot discourage notifying the parent over anything that's a critical decision to do with their mental, emotional, or physical well-being. I mean, that's just basic common sense, isn't it? Again, outside of extenuating circumstances, that's just basic common sense. Now, that prohibits classroom discussion about orientation or gender identity in certain grade levels, and quite rightly so. Children have completely lost their innocence in this day and age, and they need to get it back. I remember literally, on weekends, I was not talking about gender identity. I was running up a hill and playing King of the Hill. You know, the game where you get one group at the top of a hill, group at the bottom of the hill, and you got to try and get up, and they would literally brutalize you and knock you back down. It was good fun. I sliced open my leg so much I had it super glued back together. It was gross. The muscle was hanging out. Not that you needed to know that. But this is what I got up to on my weekends. I wasn't talking about gender identity. Children need their innocence back. And all these adults now that, you know, that are going like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that. And they don't. You had a normal childhood. You know? Why do you want to inflict this on kids? What's wrong with you? It requires school districts to notify parents of healthcare services, authorises parent to bring action against school district to obtain declaratory judgment, provides for additional award of injunctive relief, damages, and reasonable attorney fees. I mean, that's all. I think this is all perfectly logical, perfectly reasonable. And it also specifically states classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on orientation or identity may not occur in kindergarten. I mean, it shouldn't. Why on earth would that be in kindergarten? Or grade 3, or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. Perfectly reasonable statement to make. Oh, we've got a little bit of music here. Turn that off. Oh my god. Just playing galore, isn't it? Anyway, in response to the bill, Disney initially released a statement that reads, "We understand how important this issue is to our LGBTQ plus employees and many others. For nearly a century, Disney has been a unifying force that brings people together." You can bring people together without teaching children that, you know, they should do things to themselves. Like, are you serious? "We are determined that it remains a place where everyone is treated with dignity and respect." The way Disney treats their employees has got nothing to do with what Florida schools do. Why are you conflating them? "The biggest impact we can have in creating a more inclusive world is through the inspiring content we produce, the welcoming culture we create here, and diverse community organisations we support, including those representing the LGBTQ plus community." The fact that their employees, the lobbyists, truly believe that that their treatment is somehow linked to the way schools are is just absolutely baffling to me. So now the company's CEO, Bob Chapek, sent out a company-wide email. And in the email, Chapek begins by discussing Ukraine, of course they do, before moving on to the point of the email, which is his discussion with LGBTQ plus leaders and the Florida bill. So this is interesting, right? So he says, "On Friday, I met with a small group of Disney LGBTQ plus leaders to discuss controversial legislation pending in Florida that would impact their communities." Well, who's the leader of that community? Can we speak to them, please? Who's the representative? The elected official. "I want to thank them for meaningful, illuminating, and at times deeply moving conversation." But they're not kids, right? They're not children. It doesn't affect their community. And if somehow that affects their community, why is a kindergartner? What's a kindergartner got to do with it? "I told the group I would write to the entire company with my thoughts on the issue we discussed. I wish every one of our employees could have heard not just the passionate voices in the room, but the bravery, the honesty, and the pride those voices expressed. It's a conversation I will not forget. One common theme was disappointment that the company has not issued a public statement condemning the legislation. That disappointment was compounded by the fact that, while not perfect, our company has a long history of supporting LGBTQ plus community, and in fact has played an important role in the personal journeys of so many of our employees. Again, it's got nothing to do with kids in school. It really doesn't. Like, they're completely different things. And like FYI, like, that's great that Disney's so good for LGBTQ employees and stuff. That's fantastic. Like, honestly, that's great. No, I don't care. That's cool. It's got just nothing to do with kids. I want to be crystal clear. I and the entire leadership unequivocally stand in support of our LGBTQ plus employees, their families, and their communities. And we are committed to creating a more inclusive company and world. I understand that the very need to reiterate that commitment means we still have more work to do. But you notice here, he's not actually condemned anything yet. Which makes sense. I also believe you deserve an explanation for why we have not issued a statement. We are going to have a more fulsome conversation about this at the company-wide Reimagine Tomorrow Summit in April. But I will preview that discussion now, as it is so timely. As we have seen time and time again, corporate statements do very little to change outcomes or minds. Instead, they are often weaponized by one side or the other to further divide and inflame. Simply put, they can be counterproductive and undermine more effective ways to achieve change. Also, it's not your place. You make films. Who cares what you condemn? In schools. It's got nothing to do with you. I do not want anyone to mistake a lack of statement for a lack of support. We all share the same goal of a more tolerant, respectful world where we may differ is the tactics together. Like, I want a respectful world. I'm happy with that. Like, that's great. You know, tolerance is always good as well. Tolerance, obviously, not of everything, of course. But that doesn't mean you have to teach kids this stuff. Like, it just doesn't. And to think that that is how you get there is nonsense. Like, when you remove children's innocence, that does not create a more tolerant and respectful world. That's not how it works. And because this struggle is much bigger than any one bill in any one state, I believe best way for our company to bring about lasting change is through the inspiring content we produce, the welcoming culture we create, and the diverse community organisations we support. Basically, we're going to get even more, on that side, I guess. Because, why not? Because, yeah, who cares, I guess. He specifically notes that he will be using Disney content to propagandise this vision of the world. There's a reason content is at the top of this list. For nearly a century, our company's stories of open minds, inspired dreams, shown the world both as it is and how we wish it could be, and now more than ever, before represent the incredible diversity of our society. All right. We're telling important stories, raising voices, and I believe changing hearts and minds. Yeah, maybe. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you do just annoy people because it's just so in your face. If it was just normal, like, I always go back to, people always think that, individuals that do videos like this are like, misogynistic and things like this and hate women. I always go back to, like, Terminator 2 as an example. Does anyone remember the big speech what Sarah Connor does, where she's like, you couldn't do this possibly, blah, 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 because you're a man. You can't give birth, blah, 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 right? Now, if they did that today, that would be really, really, really in your face, right? But back then, like, it made sense under the, in terms of the character, her breakdown. But, anyone was to say anything like that today, it would be literally signposted that this is the agenda of the entire movie. And people are on edge about it as well, and you just annoy people. But people love Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton. They love her. They think she's great in that role. They think that one of the best movies of all time. So obviously no one was like, oh, it's woke. No one cares. It's just about making good films. But obviously they're signalling here that they're not going to do that now, which is a shame. I firmly believe that our ability to tell such stories and have them received with open eyes, ears and hearts would be diminished if our company were to become a political football in any debate. But you're doing it anyway by default, because you're going to reduce the actual good stories that you tell to produce this nonsense instead. Powerful content that changes hearts and minds only springs from inclusive cultures, which not only attract and retain the best and most diverse talent, but also give those employees the freedom to bring forth ideas that reflect their lives and experiences. We must work together to ensure Disney always remains such a place. And then next, Chapek would tout the company's dedication. In terms of our communities, again, who represents this? Who's elected? Can we speak to them? We are and will continue to be a leader in supporting organisations that champion diversity. In 2021, we provided nearly $3 million to support the work of LGBTQ plus organisations. That is a lot of money. What do they have to show for it? Like, what was the result of that? And we have a long history of supporting important events like Pride, parades, and being there in times of need, just as we were following the Pulse shooting in Orlando. And all this is why we earned 100% rating from the Human Rights Campaign for 16 years in a row. Perfect, great, I guess, who cares? So, yeah, interesting. Our company's been a force for inclusion for a long time, and that will not change on my watch. Perfect, I guess. I hope we will continue growing, rowing in the direction of a better tomorrow. Right, but whose vision of a better tomorrow, quite frankly? Because according to a lot of these people, they want, children to know about all of this stuff, and children don't need to know about this stuff. They just simply don't. There's obviously more stuff to this article, but I don't really want to get into it. It's just no point. I think the bottom line is, ladies and gents, is that, no matter what you think of creating a fair, tolerant, and respectful world, children still need a level of innocence. Like, they don't need to know this stuff. They just don't. Just kick them outside, play some football or some crap like that. I don't know. It's just scary that, the world. And again, a lot of people. There will be individuals here like commenting, going, "Well, I should blah 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 blah." So, but you had a normal upbringing. Why do you want to take that from other people? It's just tragic to me. Anyway, let me know what you think down below. If you're new here, do hit subscribe. Let's have some, like, you know, actual constructive debate in the comments. Nothing I've said is bigoted. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, you know, teach this stuff, just not to children. Don't teach it to children. Let them have their innocence. But apparently that'll be me labelled a bigot now, which is a shame, to be honest, because it not only shows how stupid you are, but also shows that you've got no nuance. So anyway, never mind. Let me know what you think down below. Cheers. Take care.